Without further ado, let me introduce our final speaker for the green stage. Bobur is a developer advocate for an open source project, Apache APISIX, and has been working as a software engineering trainer for 2 years. Also, highly skilled in developing, testing, and designing software, knowledgeable of back-end development and the best practices by having more than 8 years of experience as a software engineer. He also goes by BA, Bobur International. Please welcome to the stage, Bobur Umurzokov.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, thank you very much for the warm introduction and welcoming me here. As you look at the slide, I mean, my workshop, how I called it, I decided to call it like starting Apache APISIX on the right foot. It means you will be successful immediately after you try it. That's why I call it like you should try Apache APISIX and you will be successful. And even in some cultures, in some religions and countries, they start everything on the right foot or sometimes on the right hand. It means that they believe that they will achieve the goal. So that's why if you don't know what is Apache APISIX, or you don't know what is Apache Software Foundation, or you don't know what is API Gateway, don't worry, we'll get everything for you here. After this workshop, we will have knowledge experiences to get started with not only Apache APISIX, but around everything that covers API gateways. So, a little bit about me, as I was introduced, but yeah, I'm an Apache APISIX contributor and software engineering trainer at the Software Development Academy. It's one of the top software development academy in EU. I'm preparing actually the students who is learning and becoming software engineers from different fields. They are not kind of career stage starters, but they are actually doing logistics, some other stuff, but they would like to change their career path to software engineering. So if you have, regarding this, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I know how to hack interviews. You can have a job in big IT industries. So with that plan, let's have a look what is in our agenda today. Yeah, I will talk a little bit about Apache APISIX, and then we'll jump into the practical part of these slides, and we will learn what is the main kind of core concept that APISIX has, like a road, upstream, service, and we'll have a look how to configure your APISIX with a dashboard, and from the other side with the command line interface. Because we have also dashboard that you can easily work with. And after that, we'll also walk through how we can monitor your microservice APIs with APISIX. And a couple of things we need to mention also, the low-code plugin orchestration and how you can create your first custom plugin for the API gateway. So here is the APIs, as we know, are now, we are familiar with the term, right? Everybody knows what's the API, and we use today either service used an API, or this is the API itself, like this service. And APIs are central in building, delivering your services. And also, you know that the success of each service depends on the integrity, performance, and availability of your APIs. So, but the next point comes, what is the API gateway in this case? Okay, we know the API, what it does, but what is the role of API gateway in general? API gateway is an essential component of an API management solution, right? It serves as a central point for routing all your incoming requests to the intended destinations. Whether this intended destination can be, let's say, upstream API server, can be database, can be any third-party service, even serverless. Like we do have serverless providers like in the cloud. And in other words, it acts also a sync layer between your user clients and upstream services, right? And API gateway also further can be extended with the help of built-in plugins. let's say, built-in plugins for authentication, built-in plugins for security, traffic control, observability, and many more. And let's talk about Apache APISIX. You may already know world's largest open source foundation. It is Apache. Some of you can be already part of this as a contributor. You can compare APISIX as a young, one of the top fast-growing project of Apache, like Kafka, like was one of the fastest one, right? Now it's everybody is using, every engineer is using Kafka, like Cassandra, or we know the Hadoop, Tomcat. But APISIX is like a next generation that we are working with the contributors around the global. And especially the role of Apache APISIX in building large-scale cloud-native microservice APIs is very considerable. It provides rich traffic management features. It is lightweight, fast, and it is easily configurable and very quickly deploy. I will show you a couple of examples. You will also understand that that is the thing that we need to for the building of our APIs. Let's talk about API gateway plugins. And we know that plugins just additional components that can be plugged into everything. I mean, some products they have plugins, but for the API gateway also something plugins call it that can be put it on the top of the API gateway, and then it can add extra functionalities on the top of that. And they are very hot mechanism in API gateway. For example, when you're using APISIX, you must be faced with several types of plugins. Including, let's say, as I mentioned earlier, like security, traffic control, right? To meet the common user scenarios that every business has. So next one is, of course, now times it's, let's say, we have in APISIX some plugins, and there are, let's say, maybe 50 plus plugins, but you need to also create your own plugins because not all plugins can do that everything we want. And especially during the technological selection, the most important consideration, let's say, for the development team, they would like to have own something that customized. That's why Apache APISIX provides a solution that you can develop your own plugin in your favorite programming language. Let's say we are now supporting Java. For me, like I'm also one of the contributors of Java plugin runner. And let's say we have Go, Python, JavaScript, or PHP. You choose which language you want and just create your plugin and get it from there. Next feature, one of the cool feature we really like is you don't have to use command line interface, or you don't have to write any code. We call it sometimes less code and no code. You just put the available plugins on this dashboard. As you can see on the left side on this dashboard, you can see all the available plugins. You can just drag and drop these plugins together to create your own plugin. Or combine multiple plugins together. We will see later on some advanced, let's say, scenarios where you can arrange a couple of plugins together. Before beginning, let's say, how many of you do you use, maybe, did you have a chance to use Apache APISIX, or not only Apache APISIX, maybe any API gateway? Yeah, I see some hands rising. I use it, for example, before joining as a contributor, Kong, one of the now our, let's say, competitors of Kong. Nowadays, APISIX also use it on the production level by hundreds of enterprises. I can count as like Swisscom, Tencent in China, also, and NASA is using Apache APISIX nowadays. But we are growing very fast. Now we need many contributors to make it even powerful, let's say, the API gateway in the world. And besides that, let's say, on the top of Apache APISIX API gateway, we do have a Kubernetes ingress controller. If you check at the website of Kubernetes, we are on the third place that people prefer to use as ingress controller for Kubernetes. And next one, service mesh. We are on the first place after becomes Istio service mesh. So give it a try. But before that, I will show you today some of the nifty features that Apache APISIX has. Very simple. We'll start from the simple one, and you can get the idea to build, let's say, many advanced things after this workshop. I prepared for you a GitHub page. You can go to this following link. If you open this link, you should be able to follow everything today I'm going to show and try it yourself, maybe during this workshop or after, whenever you have time. And I'm starting the GitHub open questions after this workshop. Leave it your questions regarding these materials. Now I'm going to switch on to my, let's say, the browser. This page I'm mentioning above. It's also provided under my speaker notes. You can go to starting Apache APISIX on the right foot, and there is a link to the slides on the Craft Conference website. Here's a table of contents that we are going to do, some hands-on dirty things today. As you can see, we will have a look some of the usage of plugins, as I mentioned it, for some other scenarios. And you will learn how to create your forced route, how to create your upstream, and how to bind them together. So let's start with that. But hopefully, you will have some of the concepts before you get started with working APISIX. But feel free to have a look after the workshop. But I'm trying to explain right now 3 simple things. Route, for example, the first thing is most critical concept in Apache APISIX. It simply instructs like how APISIX can forward the request to the, let's say, backend services. Like a simple route for the, let's say, for cars, right? When you drive in a car, you can go and follow the roads, whether you choose to go to the left or go to the right. This is how simple we call the route in the API world. And next one is upstream. We call it, it's a very simple view of backend services because we do have nowadays, after some getting rid of monoliths, we have 2 or more microservices, right? That we call it backend services. This all the group of backend services call it like upstream, or you can in the Kubernetes world you can call it like nodes, right? It's up to you how you call, but the idea is a set of backend services. And the third one, is the most important one, is plugins. We will see some of the plugins today. What are the plugins you can experiment on? So let's go on. In order to get started and run some of the APISIX features, you should have Docker installed on your machine. First of all, make sure that you install the Docker. In my case, on my machine, Docker desktop is running on. Because it is very convenient to bring all the packages that the APISIX has. We also support Helm. We can install with Helm your APISIX server, etc. But I think Docker is the best option that I see now. And another tool you need, just the command line interface, or to do some curl commands, right? To test our API validation, etc. But maybe you can also use the Postman or Insomnia. It's up to you. We are developers. We have many options. Just to choose the best fits your, let's say, requirements. Next step, I assume that you have installed APISIX. You can just clone the following repository I have prepared and go to this repository by opening this folder, because I have already done before the workshop this preparation, and just do the Docker compose, and everything will be set it up for you. And after that, you download it, you install the Docker compose. We can jump into the now terminal and execute this following command. like to make sure that this host are running on the Docker and we are accessing successfully this admin API that the Apache APISIX has. So I will just copy this curl command and go to my favorite terminal. It's up to your machine, which terminal you are using. I'm using Mac, and I have this iTerm second version installed. And now, if you are, I will open a new tab. I think it's visible. I can make it a little bigger. No, it should be. Is it good? Visible? OK, good. Yeah. Now I can test now the first thing if I have my server is up and running, APISIX server. So as you can see, APISIX server is running on my local environment. And in order to test it, we need to run some curl commands. Also, make sure that you have providing API key when you are doing any request against admin API, because the security of your admin configuration is very important. Make sure that you have API key always in place. And by default, APISIX provides a random this key, but it should be updated. And maybe very regularly, you should update. Now, I will run this command, press enter. As you can see, Apache APISIX server responding me with a success. What it means that, OK, we are ready. I have created my server, and you can try anything on my APISIX server. And so next thing we're going to do now, we'll create a route, new route, that's capable of routing some requests to our upstream. How it works? Because routing has, see this command, let's see, and break down this command to understand what does mean each row in this code. Let's say if you start with curl, we know the curl. Curl just make sure that we are doing curl command against any endpoint we have. And you see here, I'm also sending the APISIX. Please create for me one route and give the ID for this route 1. And because it's the first route we are creating, this ID of route will be first. Or you can give any route ID per your need. Because in APISIX, we control and manage objects with REST API. Like, as I said, we have objects like routes, upstream, and services. Now I'm creating a new route. And I'm saying, OK, please create a route for these only get methods, HTTP get methods. We do have other methods also, but route has a capability of matching rules, right? We should provide the conditions. Like, OK, any requests coming up to my API that starts with get, it should be get, and with the matching rule host, that's example.com, should be forwarded to this upstream. And in another condition we have here is URA. I mean /anything. Like if you have go to /anything, it will redirect it to your backend service. Let's say in my case, backend service http bin.org means if you go to this http bin.org website, they are just let's say simple server which provides some request responses, mock responses or requests. Like you can try and when you are showing or demonstrating something, you can do it or try to do use http bin.org. What does it mean? When I do, for example, now get my domain and /anything request, this request will be forwarded to this http bin.org. Maybe in reality, instead of this mock server, you should have your own server, right, up and running on your machine. So let's go and create this route. Once we understood that what does mean this, everything, let's go to, again, terminal. I will just copy paste this command and put it in the terminal. By the way, you don't have to every time copy paste these commands. I prepared on the same GitHub repository scripts. You can just run the bash scripts to do this work for you. Because the purpose of I'm doing copy pasting here to on the same time explain to you kind of what we are trying to achieve by these commands. Now, if I do and run this command, as you can see, the server is returning me success, like 200. Means, okay, I created following route for the API gateway. When you do this following request, this request will be forwarded to the simply mock server, http.org. Now we have a route ready with the above steps, simply. Yeah, once we have a created route, next step what is? We need to create upstream. Because, as I said, the three concepts should be binded together, route, upstream, and put them together. Upstream now, in the previous step, we created, at the same time, we created the route. If you can pay attention here. In the JSON object, we are sending first create me route, and also include this upstream. But there can be another option, vice versa. You can create upstream separately, maybe use this upstream for many routes. Like you don't have to create each time. Because let's say in the reality, you will have one backend service can serve many different kind of requests, right? That's why let's create maybe upstream. You can just follow before, let's say, creating upstream. You can read the documentation of APISIX. That's why I'm just hiding these solutions. But you can try it yourself anytime. But if you cannot achieve the result, you can always come back to this hands-on lab and try it again. So next step, yeah, I'm creating upstream. What I'm saying to the APISIX server, I'm saying, okay, now you can notice that here I'm changing the endpoint, right? It was before /route because we use it to create the route. But now it's /upstream because we are creating new upstream. It's very easy. And what we are saying next, we have only one node. Inside the node attribute, you can create many nodes in case you have many backend services. But in my case, only one simple service I have. That's why I'm not creating many nodes. And you can also see what is the type here. I'm, let's say, giving the type like round robin. It's an algorithm, round robin. By default, Apache APISIX switches on round robin algorithm. It's a kind of simple algorithm, identifies, depends on some rules, which upstream should be redirected. That's why. I have only one upstream, that's why I don't have any rule, right? And simply I can use round robin. But for the advanced things, like you can add additional properties like a health check for your let's say upstream or upstream or for your API, right? APIs can have also some retries mechanisms. It's also provided by APISIX, or you can also provide some retry timeout sections and all load balancing to the multiple systems. So, and now I can go again to the terminal and create my first route. I mean, first upstream, once I have a route, I will create my upstream. Here we go. Now, as you can see, the route successfully created. Up till now, I have created the route separately, visual upstream also, and now I have, again, this upstream. Let's come back, switch to, again, this hands-on lab, and you can see we have route and upstream, how to connect them once we have the two of them. This is a very simple command here. As you can see, how you can connect your route to the upstream by upstream ID. What does it mean? In this route configuration, let's say any, for example, requests that coming to the /get will be redirected to this http.org with a configuration that has upstream has. Let's say upstream ID 1 means it is using the upstream we created above, this one. And it's only simple binding. Like you can use ID, and it will be binded together. And I also mentioned here, this HTTP bin always can be replaced to your real backend service, whether it can be your Spring application or, let's say, .NET application. It depends on which environment you are building your backend services. Now, let's run this simple command and make sure that we have route and upstream binded. So let's go. Now, as you can see, I have, again, this APISIX responding me with a success, and all good. Next step is testing. Make sure that everything is working. We are talking about, like, okay, when you do /get, I should get a response from somewhere from the mock server, like call it http.org. To do that, for this validation, I prepared here another command to make sure that this binding is working. Let's see here what we are saying to this APISIX server. Like, okay, let's try what happens if /get with a couple of query parameters in the request should forward all my requests to the following endpoint. If this forwards request, I should get the success response from this server, I mean, from the http.org server. If not, if nothing, I mean, something not working, I should get a response like 404, not found, or let's say route is not reachable, etc. To make sure, I will, again, take this command and jump into my terminal. Maybe I can also clean my terminal, right? Otherwise, it's not readable. Just to make sure that we are beginning from the top. Here we go. Yeah, as you can see, what's happening right now, I got 200 OK from my upstream, right? And it doesn't matter whatever I am sending, any parameters, because route is matching /get, right? We said to the route like any matching rule. If finds it's there /get, it's forwarding to this, let's say, the road. The same with the cars again. Yeah, many of us as drivers on the route table, you can see if you go to this right direction, you will go to Milan, and if you go to the left, you will go to Budapest, right? In the same way, we are doing like /get means /Budapest. Like if you go to this /Budapest, you will go to Budapest, of course. That's how we get this response from http://bin.org. So this is a very basic things that APISIX is capable of. There are many things we can cover, like for example, dashboard, because now we run how many commands? Like 4 commands, right? One command upstream, we create a route, the second upstream, we binded them, and we validated. Lots of long things, right? But you can achieve that with a dashboard, with a, let's say, beautiful user UI interface. Like you don't have to care about Carol commands anymore because we are living in modern, like 21st century. Here, that's for the reason we create the dashboard for the Apache APISIX. I think if you know other open source projects that API gateway providers, they don't have their own dashboard, built-in dashboard, but the APISIX has. We can test it now, like how we can use a similar things we can do as we did is for Carol commands with the dashboard. But for this point, I will leave it to you. Like you can try it yourself. Maybe after the workshop, I propose here the steps how you can open your dashboard and create a route and upstream. I'm not gonna cover this, but I will show you what we achieved in the dashboard by running Carol commands. So if you go to dashboard now, because we installed Apache APISIX with Docker, Docker automatically brings some other components API6 has, like a dashboard. It brings admin API, and it brings Prometheus. It brings Grafana dashboard. I will show you later what are the features in the Docker containers running. If you go to localhost 9000, my dashboard is running because Docker, let me show you, if I go to Docker desktop, here some of the containers already running right inside the Docker API6. You can see also you can notice this API6 server, and you can notice also etcd. We use in API6 as a, let's say, a database, how would say, to persist all the configuration. We use also similar to Kubernetes etcd, let's memory, and also web. This is what we have this now, the dashboard, up and running. That's why I don't have any issue now. I can open and access my local host dashboard. Let's go what we have. Let's see what we have in this dashboard. By default, you can use admin as a username, admin as a password. But you can change anytime by going to this API6 configuration because it's just default values. I will write now admin and admin for both username and password, and press the login button. Here you go. Now it's, we have the dashboard. As you can see, dashboard provides some of the things like route. You can see if you navigate to the route, the page. As you can see, the route we have created just by running curl commands. You see here, and some other stuff. Maybe I created before. It's showing route. It's listing all the routes I have. But of course, you can configure this route, give a name to this route, etc. Let's say you can control, manage all the routes through the dashboard. Let's see if we have a upstream. We created the early step. Yes, we have Upstream in place, and other features like service, consumer, and plugins. We're gonna see now what they are. Next thing, let's say, now once we have route, Upstream, but someone can ask, okay, it's not secure, like you didn't use any, let's say, securing features to blocked access, because now if you open your browser, everybody can reach your API. I mean, the API gateway. That's something we need to do. We need to secure our APIs by, let's say, enabling or disabling some security rules, etc. What I want to do now, I want to enable, let's say, one of the simple basic authentication for my API gateway. You can also find the same steps in the hands-on lab, what I'm doing here. Let's say, you will start from the login, and you just follow these steps to create your first route and upstream, and find out how you can enable this key authentication, basic key authentication. I have a route. For the same route, what I do now, I will create basic authentication. I will click and press the configure. Maybe in the first step, when we did some curl common stuff, we didn't give a name. I can give maybe any random name. Let's call it test route. There are some other properties this API gateway has. You might look at what they are, but we can leave them as default right now. We are not interested in this purpose. And here also you can define your API backend server. It means upstream. We have defined it already. You see HTTP org. We are using round-robin algorithm. We have nodes, etc. But the interesting part comes on the third tab, plugin configuration. Here you can enable any plugin you would like to use. There are, for example, some authentication plugins or security plugins, traffic control plugins. I'm interested now the basic one for the authentication. Let's say key else. What it means, like now we were accessing without API key, I will enable that our customers or our users should use their API key to access my API. To do that, I will just find out the plugin that I want to use and click Enable button. What it does, it brings you to another pop-up menu. From there, you can just move the toggle to the right and switch on this plugin simply. For the raw data, just leave it as it is, nothing to send. But there are some properties. You can check the documentation. Some extra properties you can also add on the top of that. For simplicity, we'll leave it as empty and press button Submit. Now, as you can see, it's changed the color. Like, OK, it means the plugin is enabled. And press Next. And you can review what you changed. We have a preview page here. We changed only the plugin. We enabled the plugin and click Submit. Submission was successful. Everything is good. Now, next step, what I want to do, OK, now we are enabled security. But who are our users? I mean, who is using these APIs? That's why we can have some consumers, right, for these APIs. Next step, I will jump into consumer page from the navigation bar and create some consumers. As you can see, I have some consumers already created, prepared for this demo. But you can create your consumer. It's very straightforward. Let's, for example, create one consumer. I can delete maybe existing one or to create a new one, etc. Let's go to Create button and give any consumer name you would like to, let's say, give an API permission. I will call it maybe, let's call it John, like my consumer name or username John. And I will also, similarly, what I did to enable the plugin for the road, I will enable also here, the key authentication plugin. But only difference is in this place, I need to give a key. Because this consumer should know one key, right? Otherwise, how it can access, like a login or password. Because every people knows its login and password. You can go, if you go to this hands-on map, you can find also one example of raw JSON data. It's very simple with one field and with one value. You can take from there, or you can give your own key, because keys usually should be very strong, right? Not like this, it's a very simple password. But you can also always change this key. For the simplicity, I will use just simply key means key of John. So here we go. Now I will press Submit and Next, Submit, and I have created John, let's say the consumer, and I have enabled for the John the API key security. So up to now, everything's set up. Now we can test the very interesting part. I will try to access the same API that I tried to access before. Let's jump into down here. As I said, to prove this, if it's working or not. If you remember, I ran it earlier, this carol command. It was successful, right? I can also show you in the terminal, like. But I just have extra kind of parameters. It doesn't change anything. But if you try to run now the same, let's say, here the command without access key, because if you pay attention, we don't have any in the header. There is no API key. I will get the error now, like because we are missing API key for this request. Because API key only recognizes now only one consumer, single consumer, right? Other consumers just rejected for this request. What about now John? Because John has access to my API, right? Let's give access, try with the John's API key. if we are able to get this request back. Yeah, of course, we got this unauthorized because we are unauthorized persons. I'm not a John, I'm a Bobur, right? And let's see the same command, but with authentication key. You can pay attention. In the header, we are sending authentication key. Usually, in the requests, we can add some additional the things, right, to say to API. Like in the header, sometimes we send even certificates, etc. But now it's simply API key. So let's go. Let's jump into terminal and run this with API key, key of John. Of course, now it's working because John has access. John is allowed to access my API. But while others not, they have no access. So that's the point. I mean, API gateway, as I, let's say, started my speech at the beginning, stands in the middle of everything, like let's say border, or let's say guard, which stays before your API services. It controls every request. It's enabled to identify if someone, any hacker is accessing API or not. It detects everything before going to the API request to your upstream services. Now we detected some kind of security issues, right? But we gave only to one user the access. Next, let's go on. Next step, we're gonna look at this more, let's say, advanced, let's say, authentication properties like JWT, JSON Web Token. Right? Many of us already aware of it, JWT, and they are implemented in APIs. But what is the benefit of using here API gateway with JWT? Because it provides centralized authentication. Now it's sometimes very challenging. You need to write implementation code inside your API service, how JWT should be validated, tokens should be validated or not. But you can imagine we have 100 services, but you should write the implementation logic for each service. It's time consuming. But when you have API gateway, you can just use one plugin and it will enable for 100 service. This JWT token functionality. That's why I decided to also include this feature in this workshop. You will find it very useful. Because, you know, we have lots of, let's say, authentication methods nowadays in this world, because security is kind of important already. We use it now in the previous HTTP basic authentication. We use the keys, right, for the John, and let's say API keys. And we have also we call it like OpenID Connect. It's advanced also OpenID Connect providers. We have, let's say, Microsoft Azure. They provide Azure Active Directory. They access, you can use also like OpenID Connect to get verified your user through the Azure Active Directory. From the other side, we have Amazon AWS Cognito. Some consumers are identified by the Cognito nowadays. But you can, again, use OpenID Connect that API6 provides. Like OpenID Connect is a protocol, but with API6, you can use this protocol to give a permission to your, let's say, consumers to use this API or not. But the IDP, let's say, identity provider can be anybody, like cloud native providers, like as I mentioned, Azure, Cognito, or Okta, and many more. But now we'll see the simplest one, JWT token. It's a token-based protocol, like we use now API key, but token is like very hard to understand, like you cannot read it. But the API key, we can read it, right? Token is considerably more secure than the API keys. To enable this token, we need to disable first, because we created the API key plugin, enable it in the previous step, right? Disabling previous plugin is also very straightforward. Like I can go to my route, and choose my route that I would like to change, and go to plugin configuration. And from here, I will just press enable, let's say, the toggle to the left to switch off. Now I'm again in the unsecure situation, like I don't have API key, but now I will enable JWT token-based authentication on top of it. Let's come back and try to run the following command. But in our case, we have already users, right? We have consumer create like John, but maybe I can create another consumer, let's say example consumer, but this consumer should use JWT authentication, not like a API key, I mean. I will give this user key and secret, like of course, like we have a login and password. For the login, I can give anything like user key, or for the password, I can give like my secret, whatever you may think of. Let's run it. Maybe I will go and jump into terminal, press enter. It's very fastly we enable JWT plugin. Now I can maybe little clear my buffer to make it clearer. Response was okay, and now JWT plugin is working on, but I only want for one consumer. What about the route? Like we can have, let's say, one consumer, or let's say that using one API, but we have also multiple consumers that using similar APIs. That's why it's always, let's say, better to enable it for router level, right? The same, we had this get endpoint. Now I will enable for this get endpoint JWT plugin. Let's do that. Like I can copy this and pass it here. As you can see here, you can pay attention. The JSON object inside the JSON object, I have a plugins property. Plugins means it's already like not a plugin. Plugins means you can have multiple plugins here enabled, not only one plugin. Now in this case, I'm only enabling one plugin called JWT to switch on authentication. So press enter. Here we go. Now, anybody, if tries to access this /get, they cannot access because they should provide token. If you have one token, you can access. That's why let's test it. Like let's try to create first token and try to access the same /get endpoint with that token. So if you go down, there are some instructions how you can test the JWT plugin. You can look at this command, but before that, think about this. Let's say in the modern security, you should have, let's say, one person who should confirm that this token exactly belongs to you, not someone else. So that's why we always call it a third-party person, right? Let's say I would like to get, let's say someone, my name is Bobur, right? If someone should believe that my name is Bobur, someone else should confirm it, right? It's the same way I am now saying to API, let's say, please confirm that my token is valid. And with that token, you can access my API. I will create for this second third person, third API now, to confirm that this, this token is, I can confirm, used by this person, etc. That's why here API6 provides a public API endpoint. Public API endpoint you can use as a, let's say, prover that this JWT token belongs to that person. I will create my prover person, third person, that actually says this token belongs to me. I will open the terminal and run this command. As you can see, it will say, okay, I am creating a public API. Now, public API can speak, simply. So, go down. Now, once I have, let's say, a public API, you may not notice here that I use this URA, like the APISIX/plugin/JWT sign. But this URA can be anything. Like you can say slash, let's say, please prove my identity. Like you can call anything in this path, but it will create some kind of prover of your identity. Now I will say in the next command, okay, now please prover generate for me one token Z. I will use this token to access this APISIX, let's say, service. In order to do that, of course, I will run yet another command, but you can see here the consumer key I'm using. Because consumer should give something to get its ID. Let's say my name is Bobur, but I have also my passport, right? I have an ID also separated. That's why I'm using this ID to prove that I am actually, I need this token. Now I will go to this command line and I generate a token. So you see very long JWT token created here. With a couple of, here you can't see anything, of course, but if you go to JWT website, if you put, it will show you what does it mean, this token actually. But we're not going to do that because it's not a part of this workshop, but my interesting part is here, I should be able to use this token and I should be able to access my API with that token. So in order to test this, simply I need to run the next command by sending this token in the authorization header. Before that, in the header, we call it like a /h, right? When we're doing a curl command. /h means we are putting in the header on the request. But previously we had the API key, but now it's authorization, like authorization beer. Many developers, they understand that there is a kind of always some use of authorization methods, right? Here you can just set the generated token that we got in the previous step. I had this token, right? But I can maybe copy in the safe place in order to not lost it because it's my ID, my passport number. Otherwise, I can't get my access to some public places. But I here is purport, let's say, the same command that I have, but on the authorization header, I will set, let's say, my token in order to, let's say, put everything together. Now I am accessing with the token the same /get API. Let's jump to terminal and put it here. You may notice here the get endpoint. And if I press enter, I think I need to close this. Yes, if I press enter, I will get 200 OK HTTP response because I'm using token. Like if you use, let's say, another token, just change one letter in your token, I mean, invalid token, we will call it. If I remove something, you will get some kind of error. We have failed to verify your identity. You can't access our API, all right? This JWT plugin is working as we desired, but another question comes, why we need it again? Like, okay, we can always implement in our services this authentication, but we don't need API gateway. But the thing is, you need to always copy the same functionality from one other service to another. Like it increases many kind of maintenance, and you should control many services. But here you can control only one place, and let's say enable authentication plugins or disable. So here we go. Yeah, now we know that how authentication plugins work simply for the API gateway because we provided some sort of authentication. Next step was kind of consumer restriction plugin. It's up for you as a homework. You can take it there is some instruction because let's say we have other type of plugins for the authentication. If you're gonna, let's say, demo today, it's gonna be like a 5 or 10 hours each plugin, but you can try, let's say, consumer restriction plugin, next one. What it does, I can just briefly explain, like, once we have access to the APIs, but under the API, some resources like, okay, I don't want that some static photos, my personal photos maybe, or the static files that belongs to the company shouldn't be appeared in the public endpoint, public internet, right? This is the thing, like only a few people can see it, but nobody else shouldn't see it, like static files. In that case, you can use the consumer restriction plugin. You can say, okay, in this company, only IT administrator or IT security department can see these static files, but other developers cannot see it. You can define here by consumer restriction plugin. You can define some sort of consumers. Because let's see, I also here listed many other security techniques for the APIs, right? In the previous talk also about this Kubernetes security, we heard that some kind of encryption algorithms and etc. But here, let's say some of the many modern techniques we use, like TLS encryption, right? We use API firewalls for the security. We use auditing, logging, IP restriction. All of that techniques we use nowadays in modern era. You can find in Apache APISIX plugin. Like you don't have to implement these algorithms or hard working by code. Just use the plugin, and that's all. It will solve your problem quickly. So this is for you. Just try and give a feedback after that. How were you able to enable consumer restriction plugin successfully or not? Leave it the messages. I will be happy to help on that. Just if you follow the instruction, it should be very straightforward. The next one, I will jump to the section, another category. Okay, once we have authentication, we are very secure at our, let's say, API. But next, what about I am using your API, but for the marketing or for the sale case, sometimes I need to limit number of requests to my API, right? Okay, this user is free trial. I should give this free trial user only 100 requests per minute or per like 5 minutes. Otherwise, we should say to this user, okay, now you are already used all your requests. If you would like to send more requests to our API, please switch to, let's say, another tier, like a paid plan. In that case, this limit count plugin can help you. You can limit your users, like how many requests your users can send the request to your APIs. For example, again, like we can have APIs to see, to use, let's say, some sort of products, right? Let's say you will put one sort of product, API request rate maybe, let's say, 50 requests you can send within only 5 minutes. But for the other sort of product, you can say, okay, you can use it. Like we don't care. You can just send a bunch of data to this API. But this scenario limit count is very handful. Let me show you how it's helpful. Like as you can see in the description, also it says like it's enabled to limit lots of let's say requests, number of requests in a given time window. Time window we will show. Look at this, let's say, Carol command, like how we are achieving that this time limit. I'm again to enable given route, like route configuration. For this get endpoint, I would like to use plugin. Because this get endpoint, let's say we have two plans, like a free plan and a paid plan. Get endpoint can be reachable only 2 times within the 60 seconds. If you try to reach this endpoint short time, it will give you, sorry, you are already like out of your limit. So we're gonna test this case. Like you cannot call this /get endpoint more than 2 times. Now, within 60 seconds, we need to be very fast on the terminal. Maybe you can also change the time window here. Also, you can specify reject code, means HTTP code, which HTTP code your user gets back after you, let's say, set the rejection. Or sometimes there is also properties rejected message. I will show you later. This message, you can say the user what kind of message your user should see. Like, okay, maybe sorry, you cannot access anymore, etc. But let's try. Let's enable this plugin to limit this number of requests. I will clean again my buffer and run this following command. Now it's successful. Apache APISIX saying, okay, now I enable it. We are ready to test. Here is some, let's say, as I mentioned here, above configuration, of course, limits this requests. If you try to the 3 times, you should get error, like maybe service temporarily unavailable. Let's test it. I will do my first request. Successful. We do have 5 seconds, right? I will do second request. Okay. Now second one is okay. And third one, no. Because service is unable already, because we had a restriction, like we are not allowing to the user to get access at the third time. So, but what about this? I don't like this because sometimes we want to see a kind of custom message to the user, right? A beautiful custom message. That's sorry, like we should block you. To do that, we have this. You can use attribute. Limit count has an attribute called rejected message. As you can see this example. I'm putting here rejecting message, like requesting too frequent, please try again later. Later means after 60 seconds, right? If I run again this command, here we go. And let's try our experiment once again, like when we did 3 times. First time, okay. Second time, okay. But the third time is, yeah, now we updated the error message. Like we are saying, you are requesting like too much, like a crazy. Please stop, and maybe you should pay for it, like to use your API. Good. Now is the limit count is working on. We call it in APISIX is traffic control plugin. Like there are other traffic control plugins also in APISIX. I can show you here. I also mentioned it. Maybe the above one, here. Yeah, here, this one. There are, these are security plugins, but below that you can find also some other rate limiting plugins, like in addition to limit count. Like sometimes you can limit the IP also, right? It's a part of security. For example, let's say you would like to whitelist some of the IP addresses that your users cannot access, or you can put some of the IP address into the blacklist, etc. You can use, of course, this IP restriction plugin also. I will leave it also for this homework. Try any the plugin you want. Next one, of course, now what we achieved. We made our API very secure. We made our API controllable. We are controlling. We are saying you can only send some number of requests. But what about observability, like monitoring? Like we need to have a logs, right? Nowadays, I also mentioned here many API observability in modern world is achieved by different, let's say, ways. Like we learn on the APIs tracers, we learn metrics, we learn loggers for the 3 different stuff. But this we call it like API observability 3 pillars. But the 3 pillars when you achieve these 3 pillars, you can say, okay, my API is fully observable. If something bad happens, I can look at the logs. If something, let's say, changes, my performance changes, I can check the metrics. Like metrics can show some in the graph, like how much performance you are having for your APIs. But for that purpose, we have some other plugins, like we call it like HTTP logger plugin, for example. You can use it for logging your information. Let me show you this. I think the logging HTTP plugin. What it does, it just logs whatever requests you are getting from the outside. It logs who is requested, and let's say from where, from which API address, and what other resources this user used from your API. I will show you this one in a moment. You can just open this command, and for the same /get, our popular endpoint today, we will use and enable another plugin, HTTP logger plugin. So here we go. But you can pay attention here. What is the URA here? You can ask me, okay, here is the URA, can be any server that keeps your logs. Like companies have own servers. Companies nowadays using cloud servers, right? Cloud provider services. There you can see anytime your logs for 1 year behind, right? Maybe every 1 year, some companies, they will just clean their logs. But you should make sure that you have this mock server that can keep or persist your logs. In this demo, I prepared my own mock server. You can also create your own one with the help of mockbin.org. I can even navigate and show you what is there right now. It's accessible in the internet. Anyone can go there. I think I can delete this. Yes, you see. My mock server is just saying, welcome to the hands-on lab on Apache APISIX. This server is just keeping all the logs. Simple task it has. Now, what my task is, I need to send this send the logs that API Gateway collects to this API, to this server. So let's generate some logs, just random logs, right? Random logs, how we can generate. Similarly, what we did, like a /get, send the request, etc. Let's go. Let's jump in terminal. Let me clear buffer again and do some logs. Some logs and some random logs. Logs, every request should be logged on the server side. Now I request 2 times my API. I should have some logs, and I need to verify if this log is sent to my mock server. Let's test it. So here, how you can see my logs. The same on mockbin server. If you do like /log, you will able to see all the logs from 2 months ago. Because I start to create my hands-on lab like 2 months ago, but here, if you're scrolling down, you will see the last log was a minute ago. That's what we requested, because we are using get endpoint, right? Exactly this one, not the others, because the others kind of pretty old logs. But the interesting part is it's still keeping, like even some IP addresses available there. So if you go to there, you can see APISIX, it put some additional helpful logs, appended some logs to understand, to observe your APIs like more intelligently. Like there are some data, for example. Let's say some quicks also, some, let's say, request IDs, forwarded ports, etc. You can find any information that let's say how your API is requested. It's all about like HTTP logger. So I think I have 8 minutes more, right? We can see maybe at the end of the final plugin, very good plugin in my list is once we have authentication, We have, let's say, the security enabled. We know how to control. We know how to monitor our APIs. The last step is, let's jump into maybe the goodest one in my list. I will leave some of the plugins for you to try. The last one, my serverless plugin. Serverless plugin is once, if you know already like what's a serverless, like it's a very cloud native development approach nowadays. Instead of using also creating your APIs, even microservices, you can use very lightweight functions. For example, Microsoft has functions, AWS has AWS Lambda, right? We call it serverless functions. In this plugin, Apache APISIX, you can, let's say, run some kind of calculations in your function somewhere in the cloud. But when you do, let's say, slash run HTTP function, it will run the function only with the help of routing. Like I will route now some kind of request to the function. For that purpose, I created my Azure function. If you don't know what is Azure, please, I recommend you go to the Microsoft Azure website and read about that. And I have also up and running my HTTP trigger function here. But I need to only enable it by going to this function app on the Azure website. Let's do that. I will do, maybe it's prepared only on my another browser. Here I can show you. I will just maybe reload. As you can see, I'm on my portal, Azure portal. I have created my free account. I have some credits remaining to use Azure. Yeah, but please, yeah, try to keep your credits in place. I was actually not spending 2 months to give this presentation, these credits. But as you can see, I have an API6 gateway function up and running on my Azure portal. But I disabled it because it's publicly available. Now everybody from here, you can use your mobile phone, access my API function, and then my credits will be over. Because these cloud providers, they will charge you per request, like pay as you use, as you can demand. That's why it's disabled. The thing is, I need to enable it. First, let's see. Now enabled, please don't touch my function. So this function now, it's achievable from this URL. If you go to this URL, you can find my function. But the idea is, what I want to show you is, let's say, I'll come back to my Cognito one. So here, the idea is, I would like to call this my Azure function. Here is my function is running, right? I can show you even. Yeah, it's publicly available. Yeah, here we go. My function is running, but my task is, when I do /get or /something, this function should start to do some work, some kind of, let's say, calculation. In which scenario I can need this one? Let's say you are downloading big video file, right? And in your API. But it should be, let's say, not synchronously, right? Asynchronously it should happen. Like if it's big 5 GB, you need to just run in the background while it's downloading. You can do other work. This function can do it. Like in the function, you can write a code to download this YouTube or some kind of video. But my task is with Apache APISIX, I should be able to run this, let's say, function from my local host. But not from browser, of course. For this, there is another plugin called Azure Functions. You should give a function URL. Everybody knows function URL right now, except this you should use /API, and you should give a function name. Usually in Azure, like you can have many functions also. You need to identify by name, and you should use the API key. Because programmatically, if you would like to access it, you need to use API key, but from the browser, everybody can access it. Let's do it programmatically. I will copy my API key right now that this function has. Let's jump into my function. I think it's somewhere here. Under functions, just a moment, go to HTTP trigger, that any of your function, and here you can see function keys. Give me a moment, it's now generated, because now from Google Chrome, I was able to access as a human, right? Because I'm using this account, but as programmatically, in order to access from API6 server, I need this API key for the security purpose. I will keep it in secure place. My secure place right now is my text file. And I need to also go to hands-on lab to get my, of course, this code. Let's put it together, copy, and paste it here, because I need to replace my generate API key to this actual API key, right? You can, of course, replace yours. Don't try to use my API key. So I will put here. And but here, I'm saying /Azure, but I can say also always we started with /get. We can enable, when we do /get, this function will be run. So let's go jump into terminal again, maybe a little cleanup, and here we go. So here what we did is we enabled the function for this API6 that whenever you should do /get now, with this function it will respond. Similarly, it responds like in previous web browser, like welcome to hands-on lab. To do that, I can run simply this command. Of course, instead of now, I change not /Azure, so /get maybe. Let's update it. Here we go, copy and paste here. But I will change this get, because we are using in this workshop only /get endpoint. If I press it, now we go. Yeah. Now we are just kind of getting the response from the function itself, Azure function. Because we are saying kind of, whenever you do /get, the function should respond, right? That's why this response coming actually from the function, not like the HTTP bin org. Previously we set it up. That's all about like functions. You can imagine now on the function side, something big work is going on. You can come anytime and check this function, how it's progressing. So with that, before I finish, I have my final few words. This is not all about like API6. You can anytime, let me switch back to my presentation, but you can go anytime to this our official website. It's open source. Of course, we are not going to pay for it, but you can become a contributor and try it yourself and try to develop your skills and knowledge, because API Gateway is something that puts every technological knowledge and experience in one place, but you can touch many technological aspects. So with that, I am ready to finish. Thank you very much for your attention and time. I'm leaving out here all the necessary references. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Yeah, thanks. Thank you.